Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm delighted to have my friend Sairam Krishnan on the podcast today. Sai, of course, is early Freshworks, early Wingify, was marketer in residence at Axel, and today he heads marketing at Atomicwork. Welcome to the podcast, Sai. It's been a long, cherished dream of mine to have you on the pod, so thanks for making it.
Hey, thanks, Roshan. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be here. It's been a while since I think we've been talking about doing something like this, so very happy.
Yeah. No, so Sai and I go back and forth on marketing stuff, quite often. So this is not going to be very different from the conversations we have anyway. So one of the things that, we briefly touched upon also, right, and to escape this whole matrix of performance marketing and demand gen and so on is this aspect of brand. And I think we are starting to understand that. I really feel like in India, there are perhaps 2 or 3 examples of fantastic brand in SaaS, right? Maybe Zoho, Freshworks, maybe ChargeBee. I would add ChargeBee also to that, right? Where they've done some phenomenal work, where their mission and their sort of reason for existence, right, was somehow identified by prospects, right? I mean, that they stand for more than what they're doing, right? And people buy you because you are that. Like I always say, right? I mean, the moment someone gets into a comparison on a product level, this feature, that feature, whatever, we've lost the battle, right? Because, hey, it's SaaS. Tell me what feature you can't build, right? We'll build whatever the hell kind of feature, right? I mean, but, a lot of decision making in software, people don't make rational decisions. People make emotional decisions. People make decisions that gives them comfort, right? I pick software X over Y because I'm comfortable with X, right? I know that I won't get fired tomorrow with X. Or if shit goes south, I can say that, look, X is the industry standard, right? I mean, I didn't do anything drastically different here. So brand building as such, right? Now for an early stage startup, what are some 2 or 3 things that they can do and how do you think about brand building?
Okay. So I really liked how you said people are not rational, because one of the things that during my MBA, I was taught in Economics 101 was first thing, like here are the 3 rules. The first rule is like people are rational, they take rational decisions. Bala sir, I'm sorry, but they don't. My professor of economics. The thing is, I don't think I'm an expert at that yet. There's a long way to go for me to get there. But here's what a brand building should be like. And I think at least the approach that we are taking and the approach that has been successful for me and like I have arrived at after thinking and formulation. A few things in terms of building a sort of like a pull mechanism of people wanting to know who you are. Firstly, you have to have a point of view. And you raised that, as you said, that there is a certain differentiation that you bring. And there is a certain point of view, there is a story that you're telling that resonates with that particular audience. Firstly, you have to have that. And it has to come from not the marketer, because everybody understands that, a marketer is a marketer. So you don't want to listen to them. And like you said this just now about like the companies having a mission and a vision statement. I think one of the reasons I joined Atomicwork was because the mission is so clear. Employee experience is broken, let's fix it. Everybody's frustrated with, the way that we are wasting time with all of these different tools. What is the way to, sort of solve that? Is there a new age way to do this? We don't know, but let's find out. That's a great mission. I can get behind it. And I think a lot of people who are in that problem trying to make that easier for their employees will enjoy it, will understand it. So you're sorted. Like, I think you caught on to that very, very well. The mission of what we are trying to do is the first part. And that's one of the reasons that, Atomicwork was like immediate guess for me, because we knew that this is a problem that needs to be solved. That's my core kernel of the story. That's already there.
It has to be way more than the marketing spiel, basically.
And we actually believe in it. Like, that's the thing,
The
right?
spiel kind of evolves.
Evolves. So definitely evolves. But the thing is, there's a core. You want to help in some way. You want to solve a certain thing in some way.
So if you are an early stage startup, figure, what is that problem that you're solving and who are you solving that for? Yeah. And base your mission around that. And that is the starting point for your brand, basically.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah. Very well put. So that was a starting point for Atomicwork as well. Now what happens when you take that to market? Now you have to stay with the pull. Like, you have this, but why should anybody else care? Why should your prospect care? Your prospect should care because you're giving the information and knowledge and, for want of a better word, a certain kind of utility that they see and say, hey, this is going to help me do my job better. This is going to help me. And then you build recall over a period of time. You also have to really understand that brand building is very different for a Nike and a Salesforce. We are on the Salesforce side. We are not on the Nike side. So we don't need to be like this all-encompassing brand that is standing for, sporting, greatness. That's not what this is about. You are here to solve a particular problem, and that person needs to look at you, your prospect, and say, hey, I have a good feeling about this company because I've seen so much stuff from them about how they solve this problem. And therefore, they need to come and take action. This sort of recall built over a period of time, and this is why one of the reasons that you need to have so many touch points. This is one principle on which the Atomicwork marketing strategy is based on. People need to see you at different times, by which I mean, nobody takes a marketing decision on, hey, I looked at this book. This looks great. I'll buy it. Nobody looks at it like that. You tell me, Sai, I read this book. This is great. Okay, we had a conversation. Then we went to the food street during Ramzan. Then we ate came back. That conversation is over. Then somebody else shows me the same book 2 weeks later. Then I realize, hey, Roshan showed me this book as well. I've seen it 3 times. The 4th time somebody tells me, I've taken action. I say, there must be something going on here. That's how marketing works. So I'm not saying 4 is the number. I'm just saying. So the number of times you put it in front of them is very, very important. And it shouldn't come from you saying, hey, we are a great product users. Hey, we're a great product users. Somebody they trust need to tell them.
And here again, the consistency of the messaging is very important.
Exactly.
Right? Because if those 4 people said 4 different things to you, you would be a little confused.
Exactly.
So they have to say, if not the exact thing, I mean, they should sort of be in the same universe at least.
Right? Yeah. And that's, so a brand is when somebody has a viewpoint that is consistent. What does Nike stand for? Hey, great shoes. What does Skechers stand for example, great running shoes. I don't know. But then there is a difference. Here's an equipment company, here's a shoe company. I think there's a certain difference there. Now, how did that evolve? Over a period of time, the message gets drilled in. Apple stands for quality. It's not now. It's for a long time. And that's also why you have to be patient with brand building. That's also why one of the things we touched upon, Roshan. That's why we also need to start early. You can't be once the product is out, hello, take product, we are a great brand. Nobody believes that. We need to be there a lot of time before so that people see it, people have a certain kind of recognition of it, and then put it in front of them.
So among the whole laundry list of things that I would do differently if I had to start all over again, I mean, this is perhaps the top of the list, right? I mean, because I thought so myself that, brand is something that we'll figure when we get to it, right? I mean, it's something that, let me be done with my pipeline stuff, let me do my growth and all of that stuff, and then we'll figure brand at some point of time. But I'm just realizing that there's just so much of legacy that gets built that you can avoid, right? Just so much of debt, right? Marketing debt that gets built up in terms of people saying very contrasting things, not being able to bring people together, and so on and so forth, that figuring out brand when you're a mature or maturing company is just that much more harder, right? And I'm not saying when you start out, you'll know exactly where you want to be in 5 or 10 or 15 years time, but you can iterate more meaningfully. And those iteration cycles, if you keep it frequent enough, I'm not saying, you should do it every quarter, but hey, if you do it even every 18 months, right? If not every year, just ask yourself who you are, what you do, what are we saying about ourselves, etc. It just makes so much sense. Yeah. So much sense, because also the other important thing to keep in mind, right? As you mature as a company, it's just harder to drive consensus. Right? It's just harder to bring 5 people together in a room. Today, I mean, if I have to drive consensus on something like this, it'll probably take me a month.
No, absolutely. I get
right, because I'll have to get my GM of Asia on board, GM of US on board, right? And then talk to the Japanese team and yada, yada, yada. And you know how it is, right? I mean, we'll have to figure all of this stuff out. And it's just so much harder if you're not in the practice of doing this already.
Absolutely. And then certain people are good at that, certain people are not good at that. You also have to be aware of the kind of mental chalangs, leaps that you have to make to actually get to these things. Okay, here's an idea I have. An idea is a precious things. You send it out as a mail to your boss, and the boss says, hey, this is a great idea, I want to try it out. And if it takes you a month to get to the point where you can try it out, by the time you're bored. Something has not happened because of...
Yeah, or your priorities have shifted.
Yeah, shifted, because suddenly there's appraisal season and somebody's asking you something else.
Yeah, you can't give as much energy to it as you could have, right? Yeah. Speaking of Nike, by the way, there's this fantastic movie called Air that is
I have to watch it. I have to watch it.
It's a fantastic movie, man. Everything with respect to this Jordan guy is just so interesting. I mean, some great examples of marketing and brand building. What are like two, three things that come to your mind immediately? I won't be surprised if you say Freshworks.
No, like, but then the thing is, like, the story's told enough. If I had to stick with, Freshworks once, I think the idea that people should realize from the early days is that we did not know all of these things in the beginning, that we were going to do the things that we did. And Freshworks as a company from the beginning had a certain risk-taking attitude in which we would actually get out there, put ourselves out there a little bit. And like, I can't take credit for any of those things. Like, I was just in the room when they happened, mostly. Like, I would write something, but yeah, like I was just in the room when most of these things happened. It was just great learning. But the thing was, we were ready to put ourselves out there. And it created a certain kind of brand. It created a certain kind of aggressive challenger brand. However, one other like Chargebee neighbors, they use the same office, the same 8-room office, 8-people office that I told you about. They use that after us. And it's a lucky office, I guess. Like if somebody's starting up, I'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to suggest, right? I mean, we get the address from from Sai and then perhaps book it. I mean, only 2 unicorns have come out of it so far.
Yeah.
You could be a third.
Yeah, hopefully Atomicwork as well. Like, let's see. So Chargebee was in the same space, but Krish built a very different kind of brand. Yeah. Very careful, very strong, reliable was the messaging they kept sending out over a period of time. And the brand was built slowly until it's such a strong brand now. Everybody in that ecosystem knows it. So there's no like one size fits all is one of the points that I want to make. Like, Freshworks was like, we were out there, we flew blimps around, like very aggressive. And then Chargebee, like slowly, very patiently building something for that kind of audience, because, you're talking to a different kind of audience which wants reliability.
And here too, right? I mean, speaking of Freshworks, Chargebee, perhaps Zoho and the rest of them as well, right? There are certain limits to building a cheaper X or a cheaper Y, right? A cheaper Salesforce or a cheaper Zora or whatever it is. I think in order for you to scale to what a Chargebee has scaled to Freshworks has scaled to, you just have to be so much more than that.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you might have started off as a simpler, more cost-effective alternative to, X or Y product, but then if you want to scale it beyond maybe 20 million, 15 million, whatever it is, I think you have to start being so much more than that, right? I mean, you have to invest in your platform, your partner ecosystem, and of course, brand, right? I mean, all of this has to come together. So there's just so much of work that goes into it.
No, I think we also underestimate the amount of work and the people who do it. Yeah. Like, for example, we see Girish is a very visible CEO, but then the amount of the team, I know he will give credit, the teams, even in a normal marketing team, the teams have to sort of really, pull a lot of weight, especially at that early stage. Mm-hmm. After that, sort of it becomes a certain kind of muscle. The reps come naturally and you build on top of those reps, sure. But then the amount of work that goes into as simple as let's put together a brand that goes to 5 or 10 mil. The amount of we know this, let's just take a podcast, like the Atomicwork podcast that I do. These are serious people that I bring on. You have to request them to come on and have a certain point of view and, do the research for it. And then sure, ChatGPT can give you a bunch of questions. That's not going to help because if they think that you're asking stupid questions, they leave. These are important people. The next thing is okay, have we done good by them? Have we sent a bunch of questions? Can we ask them one more? Can we add a couple more questions here? Okay, you've got this audio back. Is the audio great? Okay, fine. Now, are we doing video? That's another, can of worms altogether. You know this. Now, then we edit. Then we get to a great thing.
Yeah,
then we put it out. Then you have to cut that into bits. That's marketing, right? Now, this is just one part. And the amount of people, see, I'm not an expert at, for example, audio editing. I know nothing about it. I'm not a sound engineer. So there's one person looking at it. Now I say these clips. And one of those clips might go awry because I might have thought that this is a great point. It comes out completely differently. So now we have to scrap it and there's something else has to happen. All of this is man hours. Yeah. And there's suddenly some people are ChatGPT can replace a marketer. No, man, what are you talking about? You can't figure that out. Obviously, it'll make things easier, but it's not at the point we can make taste decisions yet. And a lot of marketing, we've spoken about, this is about taste.
Aesthetics. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on from this to, let's say, a young marketer, right? Someone who's going to join an early stage marketing team. He or she is perhaps the first or second marketer in the team. What should they look out for? what are some 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would offer for these people to be immediately effective? Because I think the operating phrase is immediately effective, right? Because I think founders bring on marketers and expect 100 leads the next week.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I don't envy early stage marketers. I mean, like, I have a bit of experience and, I think my boss trusts me. I think he does. So then you have a certain amount of like leeway, like leverage, and you can say, hey, Vijay, no, I don't think this is how you're doing it. Give me the chance. Give me a couple of months. Like, let me try to solve this. So you have that leverage. But when you're also learning on the job and you're also being pressurized from a couple of different angles, I think you're stuck. I think I would be petrified, and especially when you're dealing with people who have experience, who are more accomplished than you. You want to please, you want to do the work, but sometimes you just don't know how to. So one way in which I would give advice is, firstly, this is something that I did not do because I don't have that chance at all, and I did not know. I was not very serious at that time as well. It took like 2-3 years for me to get serious about work and life as well. I would get a mentor really quickly. Part of the reason that I write my newsletter is because when I was a young marketer, nobody told me, shit, Roshan, man, it was so difficult. The thing is, I didn't even know the opportunities that were there right in front of me. Now when I think about, hey, I should have done that. That's great to do, but I didn't even know, how do you see something that's not in your vocabulary? It doesn't exist. So the first thing is try to get a mentor, whom you can trust, who's on your side, and preferably someone not in your organization. Right. And that will help a lot.
Who's been there, done that.
Yeah. And you can't trust everybody. You can't have everybody's not going to be that mentor you want. So you got to have you got to feel for it. But then once you have that person, I think that will change a lot of things for you. Later in my career, I found somebody whom I could talk to about life in general and not so much about marketing, but life and career. That helped me a lot. That's one thing. The other thing is become a better writer, even with ChatGPT and so on. A lot of marketing, a whole lot of marketing is about narrative. Almost 60 to 70% of marketing and brand building is about aesthetics, taste, and narrative. Read and write as much as you can, even if it's marketing stuff. I don't really care. It's not you got to read Salman Rushdie or something, but read as much as you can, and even if that means only marketing stuff that you find in articles and so on. Just don't go towards clickbait. See if you can read a 5,000 word article without losing interest. See how you can deconstruct that and reconstruct that for something that you're doing.